It officially begins today. Colorado Rockies baseball underway as the team's pitchers and catchers report. Guess what? The team also locks down its manager for another year. Bud Black staying with the team until through 2024. We'll talk about all things Rockies today on Locked On Rockies.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 15th day of February in the year 2023. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do each and every day here on the Locked On Rockies podcast, is talk Rockies baseball. All right. Now, I wanted to, as I'm getting readjusted in my chair here today on the show, I want to talk Bud Black extension. I want to talk pitchers and catchers reporting the season officially underway for the Rockies. We're going to break down that big news, obviously, the Bud Black extension. But what are we looking for, at least right away in spring training? The things that I have my eyes on immediately. And one of those things is health of the Rockies. And Danielle Allentuck provides a nice little thread of an update on Rockies pitchers' health that we'll get to. Before we get to that, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. All righty. Yes, folks, it's here. They have done it. They are back in action. The bullpens are popping. The grass is being mowed. It is officially baseball time yet again. Spring training games a little bit down the line, but the Rockies are back in action officially, and things are underway. And one thing that I think we need to check in on, the first thing that we need to know about the Rockies right now at this point in spring training, is the overall health of the Rockies, especially when it comes to the depth of the rotation and some of the bullpen pieces the Rockies have. And, well, lucky for us, Danielle Allentuck has just what we need. So Antonio Senzatella is expected back in May. Ryan Rollison is about a month away, so that puts him mid-March, probably closer to April, I would say, just to be safe with that one. And Peter Lambert, forearm and elbow, is a full go in spring training. Again, this is from Danielle Allentuck at @D_Allentuck on Twitter. Peter Lambert is a full go in spring training, but will be monitored. She followed up later. Someone asked for a Tyler Kinley update, and Tyler Kinley isn't expected back until midway through the season, which could be massive for the Rockies. Really, really interesting option there for the Rockies and what happens when Kinley comes back. But good to hear Senza's May. I thought that was going to be later. I thought for sure with when that happened and the extent of that injury, I thought for sure it was going to be past May. But May will help the Rockies. That's and let's say late May. Let's put it on the more late stage of May before Senza returns. So that means the Rockies have to figure out about a month and a half of really questionable depth with their starters. They of course they do have Jose Urena, they have Austin Gomber, and now with Peter Lambert here, they do have options before Senza is going to come back. So there's going to be some things there that the Rockies have. Peter Lambert's going to be probably the most interesting one for the Rockies. I think when we're looking at not only some health things as we're focusing on, there's another player, of course, we need to talk about when it comes to health as well here in a little bit. But he's someone to watch throughout this entire spring. Peter Lambert having a solid spring is a good sign for the Rockies. If Peter Lambert is someone the Rockies can turn to with confidence in that fifth spot, then the Rockies fill a really big hole in their rotation. They then get into an interesting spot where, say, Jose Urena is having a good year, right? Maybe he's dealing pretty well, and Peter Lambert's throwing pretty well. Senza's back in the mix, and you're still trying to figure things out with your rotation. What if Urena becomes a trade piece and you want to keep Lambert, or vice versa? What if you want to move Lambert for a little bit bigger of a package because he has a more control, maybe something there? Peter Lambert having a good enough spring and good enough start to the year to be a good or solid fifth starter for the Rockies is massive. It solves a huge issue that the Rockies are facing and gives you more depth as well, because a good Peter Lambert means then you can add Austin Gomber into your bullpen. But I think the goal is going to be Gomber in that rotation. Gomber is going to be another pitcher to watch. How they use Gomber throughout this spring training session, what they do with him, be interesting to hear maybe once we get some more reports and once people are able to talk a little bit more with the Rockies and Bud Black down there in spring training, what the plan is for someone like Gomber, because I think that is going to be a question that has to be asked at least at some point. It's got to be on the mind of someone, is what is ideally the plan for Austin Gomber? Like, the Rockies in their mindset have to have an ideal situation. Of course, they have something that's probably like shoot for the moon expectation, but what really is the Rockies' expectation for Austin Gomber? And I think that expectation for Austin Gomber should try to be set sooner rather than later so he can settle in his role. Austin Gomber, not only part of a tumultuous trade, but has been up and, in the lineup and then in the bullpen and kind of bouncing around. Going in and understanding kind of more the plan with what we want to do with Austin Gomber might have some benefits, but Austin Gomber is also good enough still to be someone that you can use as your fifth starter. And Gomber and Peter Lambert can kind of fill the same role of spot starter, someone that long relief as well. So they might work in the same way, but it would be nice if both of them are an interesting asset too, especially with the Rockies going to need the depth through the first month and a half of the season. The Rockies need to compete in the first month and a half of the season. Again, there's for a lot of not a lot of hope, but if we are to hope for success for the Rockies and something good, it has to come with a hot start and a sustained start. The Rockies can't afford to lose months, basically. That's kind of how the outlook of what you want to look for, I think, with some of it for the Rockies is the same trap could happen. The Rockies could start hot, but the Rockies, if they want to be in it and they're going to compete with the boat race that is certainly going to be at the top of the NL West for the rest of this year, they can't really afford to lose any months. And we've seen the Rockies definitely capable of the losing month. So it would be nice to have a clear plan with what the Rockies want to do with Austin Gomber and Peter Lambert coming out of spring training. But with the Senza injury and with that, I mean, they are needed immediately to fill that fifth spot because and fourth spot really, because right now you're kind of looking at just your Marquez, Freeland, Urena, and they have there might be some other options, but those are the main three right now of the Rockies rotation that we have at least some solid knowledge on. And we know a little bit about Lambert and of course Gomber. But right now within the Rockies, those are at least five starters that could make up the Rockies rotation to start the season. So throughout spring training, where you're going to have to see who is getting starts, who is being put in positions that'll simulate start-like situations and things of that nature. So we'll see. We'll have to see, but that's some good sign with the health. A bummer about Tyler Kinley, but again, May for Senza would be big news, especially if he comes back healthy and able to pitch. But ACL, that's going to be a tough one. That is going to be a tough one. I mean, because he's back and then he's got to go to spring training. It's who knows when Senza really is going to pitch. So Gomber and Lambert are going to have to be ready to go for the Rockies here. And if you want to get in on, betting on the Rockies, well, why don't you check out our friends at FanDuel, the official sports betting book of the Locked On Podcast Network. And it's the midway point of the NBA season is here. Now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book app. It's free. It's secure. You can go and check it out on the App Store, and you can get a no sweat first bet when you sign up today. And that no sweat first bet's going to go up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. See what the Nuggets are up to here in terms of basketball odds here. They are playing the Mavs in what should be a really good matchup. And currently, Nuggets are the favorite at -184 there, but the over-under totals that's sitting at 234 for this game. Nuggets are the favorites, and that's fun to say. You can see all the wagers and more at FanDuel.com. And when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, you're going to be able to make your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets. And that's at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so we were talking pitcher health there in the first segment. We got to talk about one other player's health to monitor, but we got some hot takes coming in here from the live chat, which you can be a part of at youtube.com. You can hang out with us here on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. We stream all of our episodes live. We got the live chat where you can be a part of it. Your subscription is huge. And again, we thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Lux Ace says Marquez Cy Young, Montero Silver Slugger, and Rymack Gold Glove. My, oh my. If Marquez wins the Cy Young, then that means the Rockies are certainly in a really interesting position, and maybe they traded him. That might be something there. I don't necessarily see that, but I believe Marquez has the ability to be a special pitcher. And when not last year, but the season before, we saw elements of his greatness and of his sheer dominance. And if he can get back to that level of pitching, Marquez will do something special. And I think my crazy hot take is German Marquez will throw the second no-hitter in Rockies history. It might not happen this year, but I think Marquez will be the second one to do it. At Rock's Hot Take says, to be honest, not really happy with the Black extension before the season even begins. He's only given us 2 plus 500 seasons. Something needs to change in management. We'll talk Chris Bryant in segment 3. Let's talk Bud Black here. I mean, I don't know if Bud Black is the big X factor. I don't know. I don't necessarily think extending Bud Black another year is a problem. I don't necessarily think Bud Black is indicative of what the issues are with the Colorado Rockies. But I also don't think he's doing anything to earn high praise. Basically now he's going to go in as he'll be the best Rockies manager. I mean, he'll be the longest termed. He's barely under 500 overall. So if 2 seasons, especially if the Rockies, which you would think if the Rockies see good progress this year, would be a fringe competitive team next season. Having Bud Black there isn't going to be a problem. I really don't think Bud Black is the thing that's causing a ton of issues with games. I think he's I think he can leave pitchers in games too long. I think I think he doesn't change the lineup up enough, but I don't sit here thinking that Bud Black is really the one that's causing issues for the Rockies. However, it is concerning that the Rockies went from great pitching under Bud Black. And I know pitching coaches have changed and things of that nature and injuries and yada, yada, yada. But he is a pitching-focused coach, and the pitching was a huge issue last year after it being a massive strength. I mean, under Bud Black, you can't deny that these, especially a lot of the Rockies pitchers that they have now, at least a good chunk of the starters and before John Gray left, I mean, they got success out of those pitchers. Like, they're not great, but they were good enough. I can see wanting the change from Bud Black, but I don't think that's necessarily the move that's going to help put the Rockies over the edge. I don't think the Rockies are needing a new manager. I don't think Bud Black running the team runs the team is what's getting in the way of the team and its potential. Because we've seen Bud Black manage this team with good players and good and such at a high level. When you look at what Bud Black has had to deal with post Nolan Arenado, that kind of adds something, but he hasn't. But on that doesn't give him a pass either, because I don't sit here and necessarily think he's been the most creative manager. He hasn't been able to find all the success. What's been working for him with Rockies pitching isn't working anymore. The Rockies haven't really had a great overall bullpen under Bud Black. They've had great pieces. They've had great players. They've had some great pitchers. They've had a good rotation, but not necessarily ever developing and getting a bullpen. And but if you don't think that Bud Black isn't playing a role in why Daniel Bard is good, then I think you're missing part of what Bud Black does. Yes, overall there was issues, but the Rockies had one of the best closers in baseball last year, and Bud Black is definitely part of the reason for that. Bard believed in in the program and what they were telling him to do. Bard had confidence in what he was doing. I mean, and he'd miss his spots, and sure, but when Bard was successful, it's because he also had confidence in the game plan and what the plan of attack to the pitchers were. Sometimes you miss a pitch, sometimes you miss control. Those things happen. But we haven't really heard a lot about pitchers come out and disagree with necessarily what Bud Black's doing. But I think we've all watched a game where we see Bud Black leave a pitcher in a batter or two too long. I don't need, I guess the Rockies, maybe they can't afford to do that since the bullpen is and the options. But now this year, especially with some of the pieces they have and some of the Rockies having some younger guys that are getting to be in their second, third year of bullpen experience for the Rockies should at least be a little more confident. And the Rockies really need to be better about not walking people, for example, and you can feel more confident in that. I just don't sit here and get super pumped up about a Bud Black extension, but I'm also not going to sit here and say it's the wrong move. Because I think he's shown that he's been a good kind of been able to handle people or prospect or some players coming up and getting and hitting their prime and getting into the action. But you do wonder, going back to it, with how the Arenado situation was handled with Arenado, how things ended up with John Gray, how things ended up with Trevor Story. That's the business side. But I mean, Bud Black plays a role and a factor in that as well. Bud Black probably could have done a lot more to keep that generational third baseman as well. I don't know. The manager relationship there is an interesting one, but it's fine. I think that's kind of it. I think that is the way to handle the Bud Black extension. Let's talk Chris Bryant here coming up in segment number 3. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. You can find us on YouTube as well. Be part of the live chat, just like at Lux A says. Bud Black makes some questionable moves sometimes, but he isn't bad. At Rock's Hot Take says he's stale and makes poor lineup and pitching decisions. This is his job as manager. He's not bad, but he is stale in CO. Yeah, I mean, you're getting to the point where the staleness is there, but do the Rockies really need to go through a manager search right now? And do we really believe the Rockies, as they're currently run, would be able to go out and get the next greatest thing in managing? I don't think so. Let's talk another thing to watch this spring training, and it's a simple one. We need to know how healthy Chris Bryant truly is. How healthy is he? How ready to go is he? What is the status of all that stuff? Is there any lingering things? Because if there is any form of a setback, if there's any form of a late spring training scratch, that is bad news for the Colorado Rockies. Like it just the Rockies need Chris Bryant this year. I mean, the team needs someone to consistently contribute, and we really hope that Chris Bryant's going to be that guy, and we really hope that we can see a good swing in spring training. A Chris Bryant that goes through spring training looking good, feeling good, no issues, plays all of his innings that he's scheduled to play, does his workouts and all that stuff. Well, generating results. Woo! I had like a weird yawn frog in my throat thing right there. Anyway, a Chris Bryant that generates results, and I know it's spring training, but a Chris Bryant that looks good, generates results in spring training, means the Rockies are going to be a better offense. Chris Bryant is going to add a layer and to this offense that's really going to help them. And it's going to make the Rockies a little bit more interesting, especially when it comes to some firepower. It'd be really nice to see Chris Bryant hit the ball out of the yard more than we expect in spring training. That would be something that would be a really good thing to see from Chris Bryant in spring training. Just a couple of nice, solid home runs, really good contact, leaving the yard, good follow through, solid swings. We see those. I think we can at least be encouraged because a good spring for Chris Bryant gives you at least a little bit more room for encouragement for how this Rockies team is going to be because we were excited about it last year. There's no reason for us not to be excited about it this year, minus the dread of potential injuries. But like I said, it's more than the spring performance of Chris Bryant. It's just how he looks, how he feels, his comfortability. Is he swinging with no hitches? You know what I'm saying? When he's playing baseball this spring, does he look like there's anything hampering him from playing baseball at his peak? Whatever his peak is right now, that can be debated. That can be something different. Sure, whatever. But is there anything that's getting in the way of him from reaching that baseball peak right now? That's the thing to watch for Chris Bryant this spring. And it could be, because it could be mental. If his body's feeling good, if he's ready to go, but, he's not seeing the ball well, he's not reading pitches well, that could be a problem. But I'm choosing to lean on optimism for Chris Bryant. If Chris Bryant stays healthy, he will be a positive contributor to the Rockies and will help the Rockies win ball games. That's my prediction. And we'll talk more about what that means and how Chris Bryant looks and all sorts of things throughout spring as well. Leandro says, Montero and Tovar are going to go off. Here's hoping. I mean, that's one of the best storylines that could happen for the Rockies. The tandem duo of young sluggers and young new studs for the Rockies just contributing and doing big things for the Rockies. I would absolutely love that. That probably, if that would be one of my favorite scenarios that happen this season. A great, hey, we're here. We're ready to play. These are your next Rockies. This is the next generation of Colorado Rockies baseball. Here we are. That'd be great. That would be something. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We are back to 5 episodes a week, so we'll be going live every Monday through Friday here throughout spring training and the regular season and postseason and more right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. Just search Locked On Rockies, and you'll be taken to where you need to go. And folks, if you subscribe on YouTube, if you rate, if you do all that stuff, if you like the videos, all that helps the show big time. And we appreciate all of you for tuning in. Thank you so much for all of you in the live chat here. We got Alex Jimenez. We had Lux Ace. We had at Rocks Hot Takes. We had Leandro and Eric Harper, of course. Bunch of Rockies fans. You can join all of them and lots more by being part of the live show. And thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And you can make the Locked On MLB Prospects show your second listen of the day. Or why not stay up to date with all things Colorado sports with the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Avalanche podcasts. Folks, until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.